the mission is always like, get the guy, but kill her off. And
Yes, she lives. She lives.
she
Hi, this is Juniper.
Hello, this is Elle.
Welcome to our pod. Today, we're going to talk about a recently released Korean historical drama. Well, I guess it's not historical, costume drama. Let's call it that. I'm sure there's an official term for it, but we don't know it. It's called Dear Hongrang. And I believe the Korean name for it, which I'm going to be butchering, is Tangeum, which translates to Chinese as Tunjing. Would you care to say it in Cantonese? Because I think Cantonese sounds more like Korean in this case.
Yeah. Tangeum.
Yeah. So what does that mean? Al, enlighten
Swallowing
us.
gold. Swallowing gold.
Swallowing gold. Not anything like Dear Hongrang, but we
Yes.
can muse on that later. So that's the story. It's an 11-episode historical, I guess, revenge drama starring one of my favorite Korean actors. Actually, only one of two Korean actors I actually care about. Lee Jae Wook, which I'm sure I'm butchering his name too. And then the female lead is, what's her name? Jo-boa, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She was also the female lead in Tale of the Nine Tail, right, with Lee
Yeah.
Dong-wook.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, so that's the drama, and I was very excited to see this drop, and they dropped all 11 episodes all at the same time, which is really different from how we're used to watching at least Chinese dramas. And I think on my way back from Amsterdam, my vacation, and I ended up watching the first 4 episodes or 6 episodes. So these are hour-long episodes, all in one go on the plane ride. So, and then I said, hey, I'll check it out, right? I love the actor, and this is a different, change of pace for us. We both made it through all 11 episodes.
Very
So,
slowly.
Very slow.
For me.
So let's just start there, right? Well, I guess we should start with a short synopsis, though I'm sure anyone who has Netflix knows what the story is if you're watching it. But basically, hopefully, again, I'm doing justice to the story. Hongrang is the name of the male lead, or the fake name of the male lead, because it's about the return of a long-lost son or scion of a very wealthy Korean merchant family, right? And he's been lost for 10 years since he was a kid? 12
years.
See, I pay so much attention. Came back, finally found there's been a lot of pretenders to his name who have, been killed or maimed by his dad, right? Because obviously they're after the money. And this one turns out to be, hey, likely the real thing. And he has a half-sister who's always been looking for her long-lost half-brother, right? And she's kind of like the Cinderella of the family, ill-treated by the matriarch of the family, who kind of holds the power to the money bags, because it's her father's kid, right? Her husband kind of married into it. And so that's really the setup. Like, is he her half-brother? What's he really after if he's not? They fall in love, of course. There's an I know. There's an adopted son who was adopted when the original Hongrang disappeared to kind of take his place in case he needs to inherit, right, the business from the father, yada, yada, yada. So quite the setup. And honestly, I knew they were, since I like Lee Jae Wook, I had read up on some of his projects, and I was like, oh, what is he up to next, right? And this was on the radar a year or two ago, and I was like, at the time, the synopsis was already set, and I was like, what is this story about? Is this like some sort of incest story? Like, what? Like, how is there a romance? Like, how can the return of a half-brother have any romance attached to it? And they go there, right? So, honestly, there would have been a huge ick factor, but I didn't feel it. So,
well, okay, so spoilers, right? We're gonna have spoilers, plenty of spoilers in this. So
just spoil everything.
Yeah, we're gonna spoil everything. Basically, by the 4th episode, they clarify his identity, which is that he's not the actual half brother that's been missing for 12 years. And like,
Well,
so,
you, the audience, know.
Yes, the audience knows. The characters themselves in the story don't know yet. So when you told me about this, right, you kind of insinuated, yeah, there's 2 brothers, but then there's like a romance, and I was like, oh, great, great! I'm so excited to watch this.
You're like, I know Juniper has weird tastes, but this is some new degree of weird.
But if you come from the perspective of knowing how everybody fits into this like Vengram, it's called Vengram, like
Venn
so there's
diagram.
Venn diagram. So there's the adopted brother who's not blood related at all. Then there's the imposter who's also not blood related at all. So the girl is not related to either one of them, but but she thinks of her adoptive brother as her brother. She has never had any feelings towards him. And then with the male lead, she was convinced since day one when he returned that he wasn't her brother, but then he had all this supposed evidence, but then he also starts developing feelings for her, for which I don't understand. We can talk about that as well. And suddenly she's like confused because she's
That's
like,
the real
oh,
mystery of the show.
yeah.
Not whether he's the real brother or not, but how did he fall in love with her?
Yes. So so she's, and I think I texted you. I was like, I kind of don't like how he's messing with her because he knows that he's been trying to convince her that he's her brother, but then he's also like silently somehow trying to like get into her brain to let her know that he's like falling for her. So I felt like that was kind of messing with her. And so they and the thing about the show, even though it was slow for me to watch, so I was telling you I felt like I was slogging through it, even though the plot pacing was actually very fast. Like everything actually gets resolved very quickly, even with cliffhangers. Like as soon as the next episode starts, they clarify it in like the first 3 sentences. You're like, oh, okay, that was like a real cliffhanger. Like, but they resolve it and you move on. But there was something off about this, and I don't know what it is because, okay, so things I love, the male lead, very, my first time watching him. I know you said you're a fan, but it was my first time, and I thought he was very compelling. He played the character very well. Like, I have no complaints about him. I would watch him in another drama based on this drama. I thought cinematography was beautiful. Production value was very high. I told you that some of the scenes and the way they film it in terms of pacing reminds me of like watching like a PBS miniseries or BBC. Like they take their time showing you this sort of environment that they're in, and it's done very beautifully. Costumes are nice. Everything production value is great. The sword fights, all the action sequences, awesome, amazing choreography. I cannot complain. But there's something off about this, and I was trying to figure out why it was still taking me a long time to get into it. And I think there's 2 things. One is there's no lightness at all, and you had used the word oppressive, and it's a very like it's a show that will weigh you down. There's no happiness in this. I don't, there's no. It's just very depressing. Like these people lead very depressing lives. They're very depressed people, and then you want to like root for them, but then the setup is kind of icky. So you're like, I can't root for this, and then
icky oppression or icky oppression. Is that a new term? It's a new kind of drama, new genre. Icky oppression drama.
And then I think and then like, do I care about these people? Like what happens to them? And I'm like, I don't know if I'm as emotionally invested as it wants me to be. There's a lot of beautifully filmed acting with the crying and the conversations. Some of the conversations are very nice. But I was like, I'm just watching it just to see how it all ends. I'm not watching it because I care about these people, and I feel really bad that I wanted to love this more. But that's where I'm at.
I agree with everything you said because that was my viewing experience. Even though I watched 6 episodes on the plane, right? I did feel like, oh my god, this is kind of a little bit of a tedious watch. And maybe it's because it's an hour-long episode, but it's weird, right? Like kind of like paraphrasing what you said. It felt like, gosh, this is so suspenseful and so dramatic and so fast-paced, and yet such a snail's like It feels like
You
you're
called it
swimming through molasses.
molasses. Yeah.
Yes. Molasses. I was like, how is this possible? And honestly, by the end, I was only watching because of the male lead. I was just like,
Yes.
I'm watching this because I really like him and I really enjoy watching him. And you know he's not gonna have a happy end. But I'm okay with that, right? Because even his end was so that was very touching for me. The ending.
Hmm.
So I think you said this, right? Like the show, the story has such high promise, but somehow the outcome was like meh, like what happened? So I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
director issue or a story or script structure issue. And part of it is, I think, also the actors, and you had mentioned offline, the chemistry is lacking, and I totally agree, right? Like, well,
Yeah.
we already said one of the mysteries is like, why does he love her? I can only surmise it's because he lived such a miserable, lonely existence without love. And she's like the first young girl, probably approximate to his age, right? And
Hmm.
he feels he can be, you know what I mean? Like he has the right to because he's now her pretend equal, if not superior in the household.
Hmm. Well, okay. I thought it was because in the beginning he noticed her scars on her arm,
Mm-hmm.
and so he
Mm-hmm.
realizes she's not living like like a wealthy merchant's daughter's like
Mm.
life. She's actually been abused in this home, and then he sees how the supposed
Like,
biological mother treats her. So I think he because of how he was abused and traumatized as a child because of his very sad backstory, I think he felt I wouldn't call it kinship, but more like he felt a lot of sympathy and empathy for
yep,
her, and
yep.
he start to see like, oh, she's not like as much as she denounces me as her brother, like
Mhm.
I feel for her, and I think that's when he noticed her for the first time. I felt maybe protective. I don't know how it translates to love because it's not like she ever like made googly eyes at him, like I feel like
No, she just stares intensely at everyone.
yeah. But like I mean she always viewed him as her like once she embraced him as her brother, she still just thought of him as her brother. She wasn't like, "Oh, he's so handsome. I love you." Like, in a different way. And so I don't know, like how it transitioned from protectiveness to quote unquote love, and then he made a move right when she was drugged. He kissed her, and she thought it was a dream, and she wasn't sure if it was a dream, and he's like, "Oh, what if it wasn't a dream?" And I'm like, "Oh, this is so icky." Like like again, because she thinks he's her brother, and I'm like, why would you even if but so I had a hard time with that part of
Yeah,
him, the character, not so much the actor, but I mean, I told you like there's a long time ago, years ago, TVB, Hong Kong had a big high budget production, and the whole premise was that this guy pretended to be the long lost son of a rich family, but he wasn't biologically related to anybody. But he had some sort of evidence, and they believed him. And then he like was in love with his supposed sister, and he did mess her up. That was like a long drama, like for the bulk of it, like 2/3 of it, she was like completely messed up in the head because she's like, "Oh my god, he's my brother," and he's like making the moves, and like that was really icky because he knew he wasn't her brother, but he still was like pushing on her. I think in here they do it in a less aggressive way. It's more
yeah,
delicate, and
yeah.
again they
Which,
resolve it pretty soon because she realizes basically the next episode she's like, wait, like
well,
she has evidence that he's not her brother.
I think he's always told the line of kind of like, am I or am I not? Right? He just gives her physical evidence to sort of convince her that I'm your brother because he needs that to happen for his mission, right? To be successful. But I think it's always been, I think, subconsciously understood that he's really not the real thing. I think, even from her viewpoint. Because, like you said, right, from the get go, she's like, no, this is not my brother. But then he
Hmm.
sold doubt in her by giving proof, right?
Yeah.
But I think she knew in the heart of her hearts that this is probably not the real thing. And she
Yeah.
even said that, right? When they finally kind of came out with it, and she was like, part of me really wanted you not to be Hongrang, and I'm so relieved you're I think she said something, I can't remember
Yeah.
verbatim.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so relieved you're not, basically.
Well,
Right?
because she wouldn't know how to live with herself because
But you wouldn't think that unless you always had that seed of doubt. You know what I mean, if you had conviction that he was the real thing, you wouldn't let yourself go there. Like she wouldn't, the type of person she is.
I mean, I also feel like once she realized he's not her brother and that she had feelings for him, she was living her own life for herself for the first time. Because
Mm,
before that, her whole life was really centered around the lost brother. And
mhm.
obviously, she was abused because she was blamed for him sort of being missing, even though she had nothing to do with it. But she was blamed. She was like the curse and all that. So, um, yeah, I think that I think if you want to say, is it romantic? I mean, like it was okay. It wasn't like a romance that I'm gonna remember forever. I think, but if you look at the characters themselves, they received sort of this um
Liberation.
not yes liberation from the life they had, and they realized
Yes.
like they found happiness, however
Yes.
brief.
It
Um,
it was almost like an inevitable but best outcome for each character in some ways,
right,
right?
right,
Or deliverance
yeah,
from the misery. Let's talk about the female character a bit more because we were just talking about kind of how will she feel mentally. But let's talk about her character because I think you and I both have frustrations with her setup. It's not even about the actress, right? It's the setup.
yeah.
Like, what? What are we? What's the point of her? She's
Yeah, so it's weird, right? So the parents are very rich, and you would think they would have a gazillion resources to look for this missing son, right? But she's also like in the meanwhile doing her own private investigation with like these homeless people and I don't know, some other people she's friends with, but it's all like on the down low because she's thinking like, oh, maybe because they can get intel, more through like through these other avenues that the rich people don't have access to, which is kind of laughable now that I'm talking about it because if you realize later on the amount of people that work for them and the amount of wealth and the backing that the parents have with the prince, the crazy prince and all that, like what was she doing by herself hiding in caves, trying to find her brother? Like it was ridiculous. And yeah, so like one minute, like you said, one minute she's like a damsel, right? She has no martial arts skills. She can't really fend for herself or protect herself. And the next minute she's like dressed as a man, like going into these like gambling dens or
yeah.
wherever, trying to like ask questions. And I'm like, how is she like brave one minute and then like, but with no backup, by the way, like she doesn't have a
Yeah.
friend like
She
looking out for her.
she's brave but useless, which is the worst combination, right? Like,
Right.
let me put myself constantly in harm's way and have no out because I have no means of getting my extricating myself. Which is
Yes.
great. That's what I'm saying. She's only there for the plot, almost like for the male or the both all the male leads, whatever, right? Both of the guys, brothers mainly, to go and protect her and take a knife cut here and a slash there and a jab that. You really
Right. Yeah.
she has no agency.
No, no, she's blindly doing this stuff. I mean, like several times you're like, oh, she's really smart. I mean, I think at the end of the day, she's a kind person, and that's
Yes.
what that's where you forgive her for all of this. But yeah, like I actually texted you. I was like, everyone wants her to be dead, except for the two
Why
brothers.
isn't she
Like
dead? I
every
even texted you
mission,
that.
every mission from these bad people, and there's multiple. It's not one. It's like you
Yes.
said three different groups, right? The mission's always like get the guy, but kill her off, and
Yes, she lives. She lives.
she's the right, spoiler, she's the only one that lives. She survives
Seriously.
everybody.
It's not fair. Almost not fair if you think about it, right? Like, this could have been a much easier watch and a shorter drama if those stupid people, henchmen, just did their job correctly.
Right. Um yeah, and then let's talk about the villains, right? There's actually there's a lot of villains in here. And there were problems I had with the villains too, right? So okay, so I don't want to get too into the weeds, but basically Hongrang, is that how you say his name? Hongrang.
Hmm.
So as a child, he was taken. Basically, there's a painter. He knows there's a painter. So someone had painted. So they revealed they painted his back, but really tattooed his back with these drawings. But he's been on the run. And so the whole time you're watching, you're like you hear about a painting, but you don't realize the painting is actually on a human being. You think it's on paper. And so they show two different painters, and the whole time this is sort of red herring. Like you think one of the painters is evil, but turns out he's not the main evil painter, even though he's messed up himself. But there's the prince. is the real evil painter, and he's very ruthless. Like he's kidnaps children and basically tattoos their bodies, and then like he has this belief that he created 6 talismans, living talismans, and his plan was to melt them in liquid bronze and then make a bell, and therefore he will ascend into goddom or become a god or something. Anyways, it was very convoluted. I'm sure
Yes.
if you're into Korean mythology or folklore, maybe it has some resonance, like in terms of that type of. I don't say it is. I'm saying as a culture, I'm not familiar with that. I don't see
Yeah.
that in
Yeah.
like Chinese culture. So I thought, as a person unfamiliar with this, if this is something that was like ritualistic that does happen in a culture, I thought the reveal was kind of cool as a story plot line, right? And the prince is very
But
cruel
so out
and
there,
it's
so
so
random.
outlandish. Yes,
Yeah,
it's
like
very
left
outlandish.
field, right?
And
Left field.
and so like okay, so I want to say like the scope of this drama, even though it's very high quality, the scope is very small. It's all about this one family, right? And then
And in
sometimes
this
it brings
locale,
in this
right?
locale. And I realized like when she reported her father for corruption or whatever, I was like, oh, there's a court system. like I forgot there's a court system. Oh, the prince, he's not like the emperor, right? So he's doing this on the down low. I don't, like he's
Yeah.
not doing this but like all this corruption and horrible like human trafficking is happening sort of underneath. And I was like, oh yeah, I forget. There's a whole reason like people can come and actually arrest him or something or put him in death row or whatever. But I feel like when you're watching it, you forget. Like you feel like this is the whole world, and it's not. It's actually a very, very small. It's a small world. So I thought it was interesting for me when at the end I was like, oh yeah, like at no point do they ever say like let's bring in other people, right? I mean, these people are actively killing each other, and there's no oversight, there's no
Yeah.
investigation, and
Well,
yeah. So, anyways, the believability is very low. But I would say if you're just gonna watch it for the suspense and for how they resolve it. The ending is satisfying for all, like the villains all kind of get their comeuppance in that sense, and so you get that satisfaction. But
mhm. But
otherwise,
unfortunately, female lead lives.
yes. And then I was texting you like because they say 2 years later at the end,
Yeah.
and then she remember her friends are homeless, so like they're like bums or whatever. And I was like 2 years later, and they're still her homeless friends are still like just like bums. Like they still have matted, unkept hair, like patchwork clothing, like. And she's rich. She like inherited the guild. So like, why are her friends like not dressed well or got new clothes? Like I was like, what is this? But
She's a
yeah, that was
bad
my.
friend, I think is what you're trying to say. And I said, what did I say back? You wouldn't recognize them, it's their profession to be
Yeah,
hobos, so they have to dress for their profession. Otherwise, we, the audience, will know who they are.
it's like watching a play where you can't see their faces, so if they're not dressed in costume, you don't
Yes.
know
Like
who
everyone
you're
has a
referencing.
caricature, a mask they have
Yeah,
to wear to represent
yeah,
the type of character they are.
because they were so like NPC in this that you don't you can't recognize them when they're not like like
Yes.
dressed like a
Yes.
normal servant or whatever, like not even close, like they don't even have that kind of uniform. So anyways, yeah, those are my gripes, I guess.
Yeah.
You didn't like the brother, the adopted brother. You
Why,
told me
you
he's not.
liked him?
I told you he didn't bother me that much. You found him petty. So I was like, well, I understand where his I understand his position. I don't think he's obviously he was never gonna get the girl. I mean, he was
Hold on.
like he what?
That I understand what made him become this way. It doesn't justify it, right? That's like
Oh, I'm not saying
saying,
it justifies.
right? Like resentment against the world. Oh, the world did me wrong, so now I'm gonna go blow it up, right? Like that's kind of the mentality here. I'm like, oh, you little prick, And he was basically forcing his own desires on her, right? And he knew that at the end, right? He was like, "Thank God, I can stop now." I'm like, "Yeah, thank God."
No, I mean, yes, I think he loves her sincerely. That was his probably only sort of the word I'm thinking of. Like the only
But not,
forgivable thing about him.
but not selflessly. See, that's the difference.
I don't think he would ever kill her or hurt her to save himself. I don't think he
That
would do that. He would
that's not
die
what
for
I
her.
mean. But that's not what I
But
mean by selfless love, right? Selfless love is whatever you want to do, whether it's with me or not, you get to do. I
oh
respect
yeah.
your
Yeah,
choices.
he should have let her go. He was trying to tie her
Mhm.
down to him. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
understand that. Yeah, I mean, and she told him like even if Hongrang was, the fake Hongrang was dead, she still wouldn't be with him. So,
Mm-hmm.
um but yeah, he didn't bother me as, but I was telling you he's the same second male lead in Love Alarm, which he was played almost the same kind of character, not as evil, but like he really liked the girl, but he couldn't really get the girl, and you're like, oh, poor guy. So, um,
The
what are
pathetic schmuck.
huh?
The pathetic schmuck.
Oh yeah, I
But
kind of feel
evil.
bad for him.
Can
Yeah,
so
he's became more evil. Yeah.
so let me interject with kind of some additional things I think you haven't touched upon, right? What do we talk about? The story, the acting, the romance chemistry, the mood, emotional impact, blah blah blah. You did talk about costume but briefly. Can I say that's actually other than Lee Jae Wook and the salaciousness or promise of salacious story, which did not quite come through the way I imagined it would. I did also really enjoy watching or viewing, I should say, the the way of life,
Mm-hmm.
how they dress, the occasions they have to dress for, and how different. Like there's so many different hats, headgear, how they put the cape over their head. Maybe because I've never watched a Korean historical dramas, I'm not exposed to these things as much. But it's very interesting to me to see, like the type of
Mm-hmm.
shoes, the slippers they wear, how
Mm-hmm.
houses are all like lower, like you have to lower yourself to enter, like they're little huts, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
my personal, totally random guess is because Korea is very, very cold, so it helps
Yes.
keep the heat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, just like things like that were very fascinating for me to watch. Like that kept me going too.
I thought the woman's costumes, like the headgear, reminded me a little of Handmaid's Tale. You know
It's
what I'm
almost
talking about?
Western looking, right? With the giant skirts, and then some of the hats
Yeah.
are tilted
Yeah,
with
the
the
hat, the
like a
bonnets, yeah.
Victorian bonnet, right? Some of them, but
Yeah.
then sometimes it looks like they're wearing like the thick helmet
Well,
for
it was
winter.
weird because they would have the cape, but they would put the cape over their heads. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it wasn't like a hood. It wasn't draped like a hood. It was like they would lift it over their heads, and they would only do that in certain areas, like in public, almost like you're
yeah,
supposed to keep yourself covered and
yeah.
not have people see the outline of your figure. That's how I inferred it. Um, but yeah, no, the scenes when they were in the mountain or escaping, like so beautiful, like so many random shots of like the ocean and the wide fields of flowers and the trees and the mountains. Like it was so beautiful. I was like, oh, it's like, I mean, I would love to go and see that part of
But
Korea,
not
South
be
Korea.
chased by three different search parties
No,
at the
we
same
were
time.
saying,
No,
yeah, we're saying it's so convenient. They would just run off, and then the three search parties are killing each other. Like,
well, it's both good and bad, right? Because we were like, how if he's really that good, the Soul Reaper, how hard is it to run, get away, right? Like
mm-hmm.
other than that, the odds are against them because either they ran only next door and stopped, or B, because there's three search parties after them. But conveniently, right, like you were saying, we're laughing at the fact that like the minute one party finds them, some other party comes and kills off the people who are like, they
Yeah,
mutually massacre each other. And I was like, wow, what is, how can this timing work out so well other than it's
yeah.
a TV show?
I was like,
Um,
what? They were running in a straight line versus, checking the radius of or the perimeter of where they're going. Like,
right, but when they're in the corn or wheat fields, no one can, even though they're right underneath their eyelids.
I
I'm
mean,
like,
I can
huh?
see that. I can see that if you I mean, it was in the dark. Oh, yeah, a lot of scenes are in the dark. And it's really weird because it threw me off. Like, I would think it's very late, but it's like, but then the servants are walking around and they're like, oh, dinner. Or I guess like it's insinuate the sun sets very early because they're still all awake, but they're just like in
Yeah.
their chambers or whatever.
Um.
Yeah, I don't know. I would I recommend. Oh, you want to do ratings? Oh wait, you know
Well,
what? We
hold on.
didn't
I'm
talk
not
about
done
how.
yet.
Yeah, I was gonna say the prince. We liked what happened to the evil prince.
Yeah, but before we
The
go, you said
oh,
you like the scenery, and I also really like the OST, especially the ending song. It's very unique. There, I
hmm.
said my piece, but we can move on now. But
Oh
it's
yeah.
very prominent in certain scenes, especially in the
Mm-hmm.
episode. I think episode 7 or 8 when they were running from the search parties.
Hmm. I need to go back and like listen to the whole song like in its entirety because I feel like they only play clips of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the evil prince, we were saying that, well, it was very satisfying what happened to him because basically Hongrang like chops his arms off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that was so satisfying. Like that's the kind of justice you want to see for
Mm-hmm.
a guy obsessed with painting and then doing all these cruel things. You're like, it was satisfying. I mean, I said, there were no loose ends in that sense, but the ending was still kind of loosey goosey. Look, the last,
Well, we had a lot of questions like why is
the
the
last five
shaman woman
seconds.
why is the
Oh yeah, yeah,
shaman woman taking care of the now crazy mom, right?
yeah.
Because she hates that mom's family. She actually was the reason I think they couldn't find Hongrang, right? Because she had his body. He had fallen and hit his head. And I don't even think he was fully dead when they got rid of his
Yeah,
body.
I think he was probably alive, but they
Hmm.
disposed of him. Or
I
they
mean,
didn't
he's
get
gonna
help in
die.
time.
Well, he was gonna die, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing how many people knew the truth, like the maid servant who knew because she found.
Well, she knew he was injured. She didn't know what his body was. Because remember, she said she came back and the body was gone. So she didn't know what he was. Like, so, and then,
Mm,
so the whole beginning of this, right? The mystery was that there's like this folklore of this boogeyman character. It's like the
mm.
snowman, they call him. It's like this
He looked like
tall, white, white faced, white eyes guy with white hair.
albino,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
albino on
albino.
stilts, basically.
And they were
Is how
saying
I
that
feel.
yeah, they were like so the folklore in the village or wherever they are is that like he steals children and eats them, right? So that was the story behind all the missing children. And then you find out, oh, it's a real guy, but they don't give you any backstory. Like, who is he really? Why is he working for the prince? Is he just there as like the cover, to cover up the human trafficking? But then why is he also good at like fighting? And why is he risking his life? Like, why is he out here fighting? Like, he could have just kept hidden. And so I feel, they didn't really explain some of the stuff. But I mean, I guess you can't really explain everything. But yeah, so like I feel like they did sort of transition the story from in the beginning when you think there's like this eeriness and there's this spookiness, and at some point it shifts to more conventional
Yeah,
story.
it's almost like they didn't either the original novel or the way they're telling the story. They did not resolve it, so it's almost like a letdown. Even as the story progresses, because the build up is better in the front, right? Like you said,
Yes.
you want to know what happens, and then at some point you're just like, okay, when is this ending? And then the end comes, and it's like, oh, action, like Indiana Jones, almost. And then you're like,
Mm-hmm.
great, okay, but why did it take like 3.5 episodes, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
And then yeah. Oh, and then I didn't even mention this part, right? So like after she thinks that he's her brother, she fully like thinks, "Oh, great." And then she starts to like play these games they played as kids. Do you remember? Like she's like sitting on the rooftop doing the like holding her hand with looking through one eye and I was like, "What
mhm.
is she? 5? Like why you're the grown woman. Like okay, you reunited with your brother, but like you wouldn't suddenly start playing these childish games. I don't know. Maybe you would. Maybe there's some trauma behind it, but their interaction is like she was trying to recreate how they played when he was 8 and she was like 10. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how much older she was than him. So like it did I was like and then he's never really had a childhood, so he's playing along, but I was like, this is weird. Like now you have like the incest like factor. Now you have like this weird like childhood trauma, like playing with each other as children. Like she was not trying to interact with him as an adult. It was kind of weird. But I don't know. That kind of came and went quickly, so.
Oh, I want to mention something random too here, because I'm just looking at my notes. I think I texted you. I said the subtitles for this show are sus. Remember
I
that?
didn't see the part about farewell. So you're saying
Yeah. So when I was watching the last episode, so I was watching it with English subtitles, right?
mhm.
When she's on the rooftop, the last thing she says is "Anil" or something like that, because you hear his voice,
Yeah.
right? Say J or whatever her name, and she's like "Anil" or something. I'm probably butchering it because I don't speak Korean at all, and I don't even remember what the saying was. But basically, in the subtitles I saw, it says "farewell," and I was like, "What farewell?"
That's
And
not what
then
it said when I read it.
what did
That's
you?
not what it said. It
What?
said there you are.
Oh, there you are. Okay, so
Yeah.
maybe it was just a fluke when I watched it, or they fixed it, or
They might
timing
have
was off.
fixed it. They might have fixed it
Yeah.
because I was like, I rewind it just to check. I was like, okay, because she had told Hongrang that if she ever saw her brother again, the first thing she would say is, "There you are," as if he had never gone missing. So that was an earlier episode before he died. And then that last scene, the English was definitely "There you are," because I was looking for what you told me. I was looking out for it so I wouldn't misunderstand. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't even know if "There you are" is correct, but I mean it's at least consistent
Well,
with the earlier
yes, there
scene.
you are is better because the Chinese translation. Because then I turned on the Chinese stuff. I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense in the context of this. It was "ni hao," which is hello,
Oh,
which
that's
is there
still
you are,
weird.
right? That makes sense, right? Like hi, ha,
Oh, oh
right?
yeah.
Wait, did you
Yeah.
suddenly stop speaking Chinese?
No, I don't think
Ni
"ni hao"
hao.
is like "there you are." Like that would be like "hi," like literally like "hi" or "how are you," not "there you are." But it could be a Korean context to it, right? That we're missing.
Yeah. So,
So
anyways, now we can go jump to an ending wrap up thoughts and would you recommend this? Actually, one thing to think about is also how does this compare to our typical C-drama, um, I don't know, swamp?
Hmm. Okay. I would say acting wise, it's better. Acting, I've always thought K-drama acting, even when it's extra, there's a level of there's a
Extra.
level of polishedness. That's not the right word. Like it's just more believable. Like it's just better. I think
Realism,
yes,
emotional conviction.
yes. I think emotion wise, the acting's always very very polished, and I like that about K-dramas a lot. Like, no matter what kind of genre I've watched, comedy or serious things, like, I always feel like they give it their all, and it's very believable, and I believe in it. And I think C-dramas are sometimes not as sophisticated in that
Well,
aspect, I
it
think.
depends on the actor, but
It
it's
depends, but
also I think it's also cultural. I think we're used to maybe more Western style of theatrics and acting,
mm,
like motion TV. Sorry, moving pictures. When I say
mhm.
moving, I mean both TV. Is there's a word? Film and TV acting, right? And I think maybe the Korean style is more Western, if that makes
Yes, I
sense.
think you're right. Yes. Yes.
So whereas Chinese is still very Chinese, if that makes.
Yes. Yes. Wait, it makes sense to us. I don't know if it makes
Yeah,
sense
I
to how
know
we're
that made no
explaining it.
sense to whoever else is listening. I just use to describe different things like in the same sentence.
I think, but I think if I wanted to say, was I emotionally invested? I would say I wasn't. And that's a sad part. Despite everything, despite me thinking this had like stellar acting, music, cinematography, costume, lighting, everything was amazing, but something off. And like I feel like even the sillier stuff we watched in the last few times, like they resonated more, and I don't know why that is. It's very hard to figure that out, and that's where I like it's a shame because I feel like
Yeah.
these people gave it their all, like the production people, the actors, everybody gave it their all, made this as good as they can possibly make it, and it just stinks that it didn't resonate with me emotionally. Even in very emotional scenes, like even you feel for the children in the scene, you feel for the adults that came back for revenge. You feel for all of them, but there's still something missing, and that's a shame.
I wonder if some of it is also because of the situation. This is such an outlandish setup, right? You
Mm,
cannot channel yourself, like be empathetic, like put yourself in the shoes of such and such, unless you made a connection early on. And obviously, we're saying we didn't feel that connection with the characters, with the actor maybe the main lead, but not with their characters per se, right?
mm-hmm.
So if you didn't
Yeah.
have that rapport, then by the time this outlandish situation, who cares,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, while you
Mm-hmm.
were talking about that, I also just the reason you're like, why is she bringing up her that episode 11 again? My subtitles still say farewell, so I don't know what's going on with
Oh.
Netflix. Interesting.
Oh. That
Yeah,
is interesting.
very
So
interesting.
different people getting different subtitles.
Unless you have it on a different English setting. Do you have English CC like closed caption? Let me try.
Let me see.
Let me try the. Anyways, well, we don't have to do it, right this moment. But I just thought it was
Yeah.
interesting. Oh, okay.
What?
So it's different in the other English CC with closed captioning. That says there
What?
you are. But if you put in
Which one?
English, there's two English subtitle sets on Netflix.
Yeah.
One that has
Which
closed captioning, which describes things for people too.
That's the one that gave you farewell?
No, that's the one you're looking at. That says there you
Oh,
are. I have
I
that too.
see.
I just put it that. But on the
Ah.
other English, it says farewell. So
Huh.
Netflix quality control.
Why two sets of do they have two sets of translators? That's kind of weird. Hmm.
I don't know, but where did they come up with farewell?
Yeah.
Anyways, we digress. So, recommend, not recommend,
Oh, that's a hard one. I
or
feel like
rating?
I don't know how to rate this. I actually don't know how to rate this because
I
everything,
know.
like, on paper, everything's great.
Yes.
On
Yes.
paper, but then do I come away going like, "Oh, I feel so sad," or I feel
Nope.
something? I don't feel
Nope.
anything. That's the sad part.
Yes, I
Uh,
know what you mean. So I couldn't rate it either, to be honest. Put you on the spot for because I was in the spot I put myself in, which is I think I told you I was like I can deconstruct the show into its component parts and say OST is a 9,
mhm.
story is a 8.5 in terms of promise, but like the 7 maybe in delivery, right? Acting depending on the person you're talking, be like a 9 for the male lead, and then not so sure depending on the scene for the female lead. Part of it is uh the fact that her character is such a weird character, right? Like the lack of
Mhm.
agency and inconsistency.
Yeah, I would say if on paper everything would be like a 9 and above,
Mm.
right? In terms of the different variables. But then overall feeling it'd be like a 7.5, like it would be like a I think I don't think it's something you need to watch. Like I don't think I would recommend it as in
Must
if you're
watch.
in the mood for something that is very high style and suspenseful, yes, it might be interesting. But again, the pacing was so slow. Oh yeah, that was another thing. I mean, I know I touched upon that. Like there was a lot of stuff happening, but it was still so slow. And I really think it's because there was no levity to any of it. Like it was just depressing, and then more depressing stuff happening.
Sorry.
And like
Well, we're having a lot of levity out of the depressing stuff. Um,
right? It was like scene after scene of like, oh, can it get any worse for these
yes,
people?
it
And then
can. Yes, it can. I told you it's like a Shakespearean tragedy, except with
yes.
the
Yeah.
conciseness, right?
Mhm.
Uh, but yes, I agree. It's not a must watch. Though I think if you're a fan of Lee Jae Wook or don't know Lee Jae Wook, either way, watch it for the male lead.
Yeah,
Is what I
watch
would
it for
say.
the male lead. I would agree because now I would like to see his other stuff. And they used to sending me these videos of him when he played. It was like a drama
Oh,
and a
the
drama.
drama within the drama. What's wrong with my mother-in-law? Where he gets slapped with the seaweed, and you're like, I don't know what I just watched, but I really kind of enjoyed this.
I was laughing so hard. I was like, what is this? And the fact that he stayed in character. Start eating the seaweed. It's like, I want to watch that show.
Yeah. So I've only watched one other show of his completely. Two other shows almost, but second one I didn't finish. So where first got exposed to him was actually another Netflix. So I think he has quite a few Netflix shows coming up too. And it was Alchemy of Souls. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I think that's popular, but I've never watched it.
Yes, it's like a first ever I've ever seen of a Korean xianxia. Korean fantasy, but it's not a xianxia in the Chinese xianxia. There's no xian. It's just xia, but with magic or powers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And he was the male lead, and I quite enjoyed it for what it was. It was 2 seasons with 2 different female leads. I know, you're like, how did that happen? Well, watch the show. So I enjoyed that immensely, and then I watched one of his older shows where he was the male lead called Dodo So So La La So, I think. And it was cute and sweet up till like the last maybe episode 11 out of 16 or 15, and you're like, it fell off a cliff. Like, you do not want to know how this ends. Like, it's not a sad ending, it's just a bad ending, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Like, okay, so first of all, I'm gonna tell you, since I don't think you're gonna watch it. Basically, it's like this rich girl falls on hard times, becomes a piano teacher in a small town. Her next door, like this guy, helps her out and stuff, and he's the guy. And they kind of obviously fall in love. Turns out he's a high school kid.
Oh!
You're like, this whole time, you're like, wait, he's a high school senior who
does
ran
he
away?
not look like a high school
No,
senior?
he does not. Okay? He does not. And then he disappears for 5 years, and she thinks he died of cancer or something. But he's not dead.
But he just ran away because he's too young for her?
No, that's not the reason. I think he was sick. I never finished. I told you. Once I knew how this was, where the cliff was coming, cliff's edge, I was like, oh, abandon jump out of the horse carriage. It's like those scenes where the horse carriage is nearing the cliff, and you're like, oh my god, gotta jump. Yeah. But up till that point, it was very cute and sweet.
That's unfortunate. That's quite a twist.
Very unfortunate. Yeah. So, anyways, he has some other shows on Disney Plus I haven't watched, but also I believe people are like, what is going on? Like, you see a lot of comments where they're like, I don't know what this show was about. It was horrible, but I'm basically watching it for him. So that seems to be a theme.
Just people watch it for him and not for the plot.
Well, you're watching it not because he's like a super good looking guy or anything, right? Like, that's what I said. What did I tell you? I said, first time you see him, you're not going to be like, wow. Right?
Yeah. No, he has a certain nobility to how he, at least in this drama, to how he carried himself. Very much the hero, even though he, has a lot of baggage. He's a different kind of hero. Like, he really wants to do the right thing. He's not using his trauma as an excuse to do bad things. And yeah, so like as a character, I really rooted for him. And you want him to find love, even if it's with a girl that I don't think he had a reason to love. But
the only girl around in his sphere.
Yeah, the only girl. Just sitting around looking into the distance and keeps coming upon her. Yeah, it's like I think when you say she's a Cinderella, that's a very apt way of describing her situation.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I have for today.
All right.
All right, until next time.
Until next time.